We are now commencing with our next discussion on audit and compliance in the era of emerging fintech. I invite each of you to kindly join in welcoming our esteemed panelists on stage. We have present amongst us Mr. Krishna Sastry Pendyala, Partner Cybersecurity Ernst Young LLP. I welcome you, sir. We also have amongst us Mr. S.S. Sharma, Director CERT-In. I welcome you up on stage. We also have Mr. Vinayak Godse, Chief Executive Officer, Data Security Council of India. And our moderator for this session, Mr. Jeevan Sonparote, Executive Director, Securities and Exchange Board of India. I welcome all of you gentlemen up on stage. Please take your seats. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. A nice warm round of applause as we have Mr. Krishna Sastry Pendyala, Mr. S.S. Sarma, Mr. Vinayak Godse, and I invite Mr. Jeevan Sonparote, our moderator of this session, to kindly take all our discussions forward. Ladies and gentlemen, to those of you present at the hall, those of you intending to attend this session, we urge you to kindly take a seat. If you can't find a seat, there are lots of seats over to the far end of the hall, but we'd like you to kindly settle down so that we do not disrupt our discussions that are to ensue now. Once again, this is a discussion on audit and compliance in the era of emerging fintech. Our esteemed panelists are here with us and will be commencing this discussion. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Do take a seat, and with that, I would like to hand over to Mr. Jeevan Sonparote, sir, to kindly take the discussions forward.
Good afternoon to you and to the distinguished speakers here. Thank you for having this session arranged. First, compliments to the team that got the regulator, the standard setting body, and the practitioner on the same page. So rarely you will find that all of us would be on the same side. You know, regulators and intermediaries and practitioners always on the other side of the table. So this is a good setting that we are on the same side. So that's a good beginning. So again, just to introduce what we are trying to do here, these are people who have lots of experience, a wealth of knowledge, experience, and expertise. What we'll try to do in this particular session is try to score their experience and see, at least try to see what at the surface that we are having, because this is the tip of the iceberg that we are trying to reach here, the kind of knowledge and wisdom that these guys would be articulating today. So first of all, thank you. It's my privilege to be attempting to get the best out of each one of you. As a fintech sector continues to evolve and it's a dynamic field, we would all know that technology plays a very important role, especially for financial institutions and others. As regulators, it's a very sensitive matter because wherever there is technology, we know that there will be some kind of nuisance that would be played. And as regulators, we are always conscious about what is a compliance. How do you comply with what your regulations are given the technological advancements that are happening? So given this, the role of the standard setting bodies as well as the practitioners is very important. And we look up to both the regulators as well as standard setting bodies and the practitioners to uphold the culture of compliance. So the compliance is not just in form, but in substance and in spirit. So that is the culture that regulators everywhere would like to see. And let us explore now how we do what we do when it comes to the advancements in technology for AI, your decentralized finance and all such other tools, advancements in technologies are concerned. As I mentioned here, we have a distinguished panel of experts here today, each bringing a wealth of knowledge in the fields of audit, compliance, regulation, and fintech. We have Mr. Sarma, S.S. Sarma, who is Director of Operations at CERT-In. We have Mr. Krishna Sastry Pendyala, who is the cybersecurity expert and partner at Ernst & Young. And we have from the standard setting body, Mr. Vinayak Godse, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Data Security Council of India. Together, we wish to explore and understand the unique compliance risk emerging from new technologies, then the audit methodologies that will be there to require to address these new business models that intermediaries would take, then the role of AI and blockchain and automation in the audit process and ensuring continuous compliance. And lastly, we want to see and explore how we can all work together. So as a matter of fact, even as on date, the regulator continues to use tools deploying all these technologies, especially when we have a lot of social media to web crawl and take down material that is unauthorized or that is not in the interest of investors. So SEBI within itself also has a small media monitoring cell that does this particular thing. There's another group that within SEBI that looks at all the offer documents, does the AI runs an AI tool on it and enables its teams to provide inputs in a very good manner. So this is something that SEBI is starting small, but definitely we have lessons for both the intermediaries as well as the regulators here. So by way of remarks, sir, I would like to start with Mr. Sarma. So government and regulatory bodies have issued cybersecurity frameworks and guidelines. How do regulatory bodies like CERT-In, CSIRT, and assess the quality and effectiveness of audit reports submitted by regulated entities? How do you see the role of third-party cybersecurity audits in ensuring compliance with this framework?
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity and good session actually. This is some of the sessions where we look forward to connect with two kinds of entities primarily, or three kinds of entities to set the context. One is the regulators like RBI, SEBI, IRDA, the regulators as far as fintech is concerned. And second one is the regulated entities like all fintech companies, the banks, the cooperative banks, most of the fintech companies, market instruments, etc. These are regulated entities. And third one is the auditors. That means the auditors who will see the compliance aspects of these regulated entities according to the regulations set by the regulators. Now you will wonder, between all of three, where CERT-In comes into picture. CERT-In is not related to any of these entities actually. Neither we are a regulated entity, nor we are a regulator, or nor we are an auditor. So CERT-In is we are the national agency as per Section 70B of the Information Technology Act for the cybersecurity incident response. So our work starts from an incident. So something bad has happened, some disruption has happened, or some data theft has happened. There our work starts. So the primary task is to run a help desk and respond to the incidents. Second task is to prevent the incidents more proactively. Proactive services like continuously tracking the threats, issuing advisories, vulnerability notes, guidelines, etc. to prevent the incidents, to enhance the security posture of the organizations, to create security awareness among senior management, CISOs, and the operational technology people. Now, third aspect, most important aspect of any CERT globally or for us also is the security assurance. Security assurance means security quality management services. There we think that in a long term, okay, some incidents of DDoS are happening, data theft are happening, ransomware incidents are happening. How do we assure the cybersecurity posture of the organizations and the overall ecosystem to reduce the damage caused by these incidents? So therefrom, our cybersecurity assurance activity starts. Within the cybersecurity assurance framework, what we have done is, based on our own incident handling experience, etc., we have studied the global models. And here, uniquely in India, what we have done is, we have created a panel of cybersecurity auditors. So how you can say this particular entity is capable of conducting audits with regard to any standard or any cybersecurity posture assessment is concerned. So in order to do that, we have a stringent process of empanelment of auditors. So currently, if you go to our website and see, there are more than 200 empaneled auditors are there. So they are having a wide range of capabilities. Some auditors are capable of various kinds of domains like financial domain, operational security, cloud security, etc. Some of the auditors are specific to certain domains like finance, etc. Now, to your question comes that how do we assess these audits are effective or they meet the requirements? First of all, these guidelines to these auditors, when we empanel or certain guidelines are there, they have been evolving over a period of time based on the experience of the audits conducted, the gaps we have seen in the audits, and the incidents that we have seen in the regulated entities. Based on that, we have created a comprehensive set of policy guidelines. Within those guidelines, we see when an audit is conducted, we take the input from the auditor and the audit report from the regulated entity, and we see the technical depth of the audit that is conducted, the coverage of the audit. That means, for example, if you have a fintech company, you have a website, you have a mobile app, you have APIs associated with it, whether all these aspects are being covered or not in the audit. And similarly, the infrastructure is being audited or not, the processes are being audited or not. Apart from that, the regulations, sectoral regulations are being seen or not, whether they are following these things or not. These aspects are considered to see the quality of the audit. And lastly, when we see the audit report, we want to see the recommendations or remediation that is given by auditor, whether it is actionable or not, or any specific action timeline is given when any remediation is given or not. These are the aspects we consider to monitor the quality of the audits. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
So, so CERT-In definitely doesn't need an introduction. So you are the first and the last port of call for any cybersecurity incident. Godse sir, a question to you on just for Fintech, because you are the standard setting body representing that. So given that Fintech companies increasingly integrate emerging technologies, so what is the unique audit and compliance challenges they offer to you, and how do you propose to address them as we go along?
Yeah, thank you, and great to be part of this such a big gathering of GFF 2025. So if you look at overall the way things are evolving in transaction processing industry in the country, right? So the entire transaction processing supply chain is getting so unbundled. And this unbundling is happening to get more fintech to work with the big capital sector organization. Most of them are regulated entities of SEBI, right? And these fintechs, so there is a very interesting entity map you can draw. So there is definitely one set of entity is a regulated entity, but there are a lot of these third-party provider, which is conventional provider like a IT provider or business provider. But now fintechs are playing very important role, right? To initiate the transaction, to enrich the transaction, to execute it, and even managing data out of it, basically, right? And also to that, they are trying to add different technology, AI, blockchain, robotic process automation, to so many different now possibilities. And in future, we'll also have quantum computing capabilities that can be also brought, and this is one of the important areas that we are covering probably in GFF, basically, right? So while this unbundling is happening on transaction, other side, there is a lot of worry about supply chain security, right? Means one important part is the component that you are bringing to the software, and those components can create a problem. There is a very significant requirements are coming from, you should maintain probably software bill of material well, and you should take care of that component you are providing, basically. So one part is like the kind of component, kind of value you are adding, and you increasingly become more responsible and liable for that. So that's a very important challenge that is coming to the fintechs, and fintechs may not be in position to invest that much. Second part is the regulations are also now focusing attention to the supply chain from the overall security perspective, right? So one is audit requirement. So fintech has to now suffice to all of, or support all of those audit requirements coming in, basically. A lot of investigations could also happen, basically, right? And this is not only audit, basically, right? Most of the regulatory ecosystem and even the user companies, basically, which are outsourcing to the fintech for that matter, are in. So they're also trying to put a lot of controls on a third-party ecosystem, basically. They're trying to monitor them better. They're trying to get hold of their capabilities much better, basically, right? They are even trying, some of them are even trying to do ecosystem threat hunting as well, basically, right? So until now, there is a still challenge with respect to top line and bottom line of fintech. But now security is definitely hitting both top line and bottom line. If you have really better, secure, responsible kind of entity, so people will trust you. So security will definitely help you on top line. But then there is a compliance cost that will be significantly rising because of this, basically. So in that context, we need to see how this will bring kind of a challenges to the fintech ecosystem.
Thank you, Godse sir. I think compliance cost, which you mentioned, I think most of the intermediaries and financial technology companies would agree that compliance is always considered as a cost. I think as we go along, when culture changes, probably it will be seen as way of doing business. So I think we'll get there. So anyway, we need to hope. So after having seen what the standard setting body is using as challenge, so my question to the practitioner, Mr. Krishna Sastry sir, audit analysis and interactions, various forums reveal that there's a tendency for treating audit reports as a formality, one. And also, sometimes seemingly there's an intent is lacking. We generally see this because some of the reports are stereotype, typecast reports, and it's just a checkbox attitude. So, as a practitioner, how do you see this evolving, and what do you think should be the way to improve the quality of audits that we do?
Thank you, Mr. Jeevan, for the question. In fact, I don't want to look at that side. The reason is being handled for 1,500 plus investigations. The second, if I see any board, immediately will struck to my mind whether any attack has happened on them. And 95% of the organizations where a cyber attack has happened investigated are complying to the regulator. So the point you should keep in mind, compliance to the regulator does not mean you will not get attacked or the breach will not happen. It's a very, very simple point. As you rightly said, many organizations today will feel compliance, okay, for the purpose of regulator. Some audit I'm supposed to perform it. That's their question mark. So that's why I fully agree with you. Many organizations today in India have the opinion auditing is only for the compliance purposes. That's very, very clear about it. I fully agree for that. The second point is, even if the auditing has done, it's only tick-based but not tech-based. It means the regulator says in organization, use a 8-character password with alphanumeric, uppercase, lowercase combination. The auditor will go and ask, have you 8-character password? The organization says yes, keep a tick mark. But the password they are keeping is administrated at the rate 123 with a capital. Any cyber hacker or attacker penetrated in the network, the first he is going to search is only whether this password is working or not. That's where we have to move from tick-based audit to tech-based audit. That's very, very important. I will come to the point later what is the meaning of the tech in the subsequent questions and all. Second, at the same time, whatever even the regulator is giving for compliance purposes, it is lagging far behind the innovation. The way the innovation is moving and implemented is exactly, remember, there's a large gap with respect to what my regulator is giving for compliance purposes, the auditing. That is a gap where a lot of breaches are happening today. There's a one point I would like to say. The most important point where the regulatory intervention is very much required. First and the foremost is organizations should change their mindset, moving from the compliance mindset to that of risk-based approach, especially security risk, as well as, remember, the other types of operation risk by keeping in mind. So first and the foremost is change of mindset. That's where they have to move. I'm doing auditing not for the purpose of compliance, but by keeping the risk. That's where every cyber security policy framework which the Indian regulators are giving, they are asking the organizations to go for a risk-based approach. For that, the first and important where the regulatory intervention is very much required is organizations have done very good qualitative and quantitative risk assessment, and what type of risk mitigation plans were there, what type of risk controls were available, and what type of risk transfer mechanisms appetite That is very, very first important part which the regulators look at. Second, we have seen the root cause why a lot of organizations, the breaches are happening is especially the governance issue. The business teams, application teams, IT teams, who are popularly called the layer one of the people. My chief risk officer, CISO, they are called layer two people. Both there is a lot of parity because business interests are quite different from the security interests. Business wants to roll out the product at a faster rate, but my security will not agree for that. That gap is the one that is the real vulnerable reason why it is. So regulators should see, is the governance mechanism was properly put in place where layer one and layer two are hand in hand working or not is the most important. Whether that is really perfectly working or not has to be managed by the internal audit people. So unless the three layers of the risk management model has not been implemented, I think we are going to face this problem. So organizations should improve their governance mechanism with the layer one, layer two. And regulators many times said they should have, remember, organizations need to have board-approved cybersecurity policy framework. But at the end of the day, boards are, remember, not taking much account. So where the regulatory intervention is very much required is board is aware about the complete cybersecurity risk? Is the proper steering committees has been appointed? Are they really working or not is the most important. That's also very, very important. Next, when we are going for auditing, what we are finding it is, we are doing auditing only in silos. Today, we can't differentiate organizations because they're all very well interconnected. And we know so far organization does not mean only what you are seeing in the organization, the servers, etc. Today, the attack surfaces have increased to a great extent. And most important is the vendors who are really supporting the fintech industry. We know that 72% of the fintech products today organizations are using are not homegrown. They have to use someone else. Yes. So how much they are products and how much they got exposed to outside world, that is very, very important. That's where we want to see when you are doing auditing, the most important is what is the organization's attack surface, what is the organization's area, what I'm supposed to do, the audit is the most important. And the latest technologies that has come, to be frank, blockchain, you call it as AI and ML all, a perfect standards have not really come up. Even though organizations have already implemented in the Indian industries, but regulators are still far behind. So far, they are not rolled out. That's where they have to work with industry, to be frank, so that the gap between the compliance requirements and the innovation should get narrowed down. Because at the end of the day, business interest is very, very important. And most important is the auditor is having a proper skill set is the one. That's where I used to say many times, it is not X is the organization who is empaneled. The person who is doing auditing is most important than the organization where he is working it.
Correct.
That's why auditor, remember, is the person should be empaneled, but not the organizations. For example, look at it. I got a stomachache. I asked my friend Vinayak, who is the best doctor in Mumbai. He says that there is a doctor who is working in X organization or X hospital. After 2 years, again I got it, same stomachache. Then I will never go to that hospital. First, I am going to see where is that, remember, doctor. If today he is in another hospital, why I will go for that? That's where it is the individual who is most important for that, is not the organization. That's where you are supposed to also intervene. That's where regulator has to play a very, very important role in these compliance requirements.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. I think what you mentioned about compliance is not a guarantee that there won't be an attack, but at least it's an insurance that there is at least a 70-80% probability that you won't get attacked. So that is one good thing that we take away. So moving ahead, sir, Sarma Saab, again, I'd like to ask you about speed at which, because Saab mentioned about regulators being behind the curve as far as innovation is concerned. So being a regulator, I also feel hurt that this is being said. But point is that as a regulator, we don't want to be stifling innovation at the same time, right? So we would like to see innovation evolve over time rather than stifle innovation as it begins to evolve. So given this, how can auditors keep up to date with the emerging risks and threats that these new technologies present, given the complexity and compliance and security risk? And how do you envisage bridging this gap between checklist audit, like we were just discussing, and how do we bring this as more of a culture and part of business rather than just a checkbox approach?
This is very important aspect actually. Why checklists have evolved over a period of time is basically when an audit is conducted, fortunately or unfortunately, Shastri sir know this better, they are given according to a standard, like ISO 270 standard or PCI DSS standard, depending upon the sector where it's conducted. According to the standard, these checklists have been formed. So in a way, checklist is important. That creates a baseline basically, whether you have implemented IMS policies there or not, whether you have implemented a password policy there or not. The problem with the checklist comes is it only sees the presence of a control, security control, but not the effectiveness of the control, the quality of the control. So you will say password policy is there. Yes, password policy is there, tick mark is done, and auditor gives the certificate. We are happy. But actually, as Sir has mentioned, whether that is being checked or not, the complicity of the password is being followed or not, whether someone is doing that kind of password cracking test on that and seeing whether weak passwords are there or not, whether suppose a control is there for the multi-factor authentication. We have seen in many incidents from my incident handling experience, everybody actually knows that two-factor authentication should be there, single factor is not good enough, but invariably in most of the incidents, the MFA, lack of MFA is the root cause of the incident. Single factor, username, password, it's gone. For a normal user, you have for Gmail, etc. For personal use, you have multi-factor authentication, but not in the organizations. The critical accounts, they are not following. So these gaps do exist. So that's where the checklist fails actually. So thereby, we have given now with the auditors, based on the audit experience, when we reviewed audit reports and we interacted with the auditors and the regulated entities, auditees also, what we have seen is, you have to create, as Shastriji mentioned, the risk-based approach, rather than only doing the checklist-based approach. Suppose an organization is in the fintech business, or a bank is there, even doing a ISO 270 and PCI DSS may be enough, but what if they are implementing some AI model actually for data analysis, or they're using AI? How will you address that risk caused due to that? And as correctly mentioned, these are still evolving. The technology is so fast changed that you don't have a standards to actually have a framework or standard to diligently check the effectiveness of the security controls for the AI or the blockchain and those kind of things. There comes the subjectivity into the audit actually. There we have discussed in the recent guidelines in July 25 we said that you create an audit model based on the risk approach and create a threat model and have a risk perception, and according to the environment of the auditee organization, you try to be as comprehensive as possible and create all these domains where that is being implemented rather than checklist. So, and again, we have also said that you have a probability to do the continuous monitoring kind of thing. Means, have you conducted audit for a specific kind of software and those kind of things, you have given a recommendations. Either in the contract, the regulated entity or auditee has to build in that verification of the audit action taken on the audit report as a part of the process itself. Whether through same auditor or differently through a re-audit can be conducted by separate auditor. Like that, you have to create a mechanism to conduct the re-audit. And also we had some suggestions from the recent conference we had with the auditors within the meetings, that why can't we engage auditor for a period of longer duration, rather than conducting for audit for 3 months and going back. Give a contract for 3 years continuously. Make them responsible. Give a contract in a long term. Do conduct for 3 months. See the remediation audit and ensure that the remediation has been done by the regulated entity and give a report to the senior management. And we have also given another suggestion in the recent policy guidelines is, in the entry and exit, as Shastriji mentioned, the senior management has to be there. The stamp has to be there from the senior management. In the entry conference and the exit conference, the report should be reviewed by the senior management and adopted by senior management, like board, etc. That gives the impetus to the audit report. Otherwise, it will become only a kind of piece of paper and the effectiveness lost.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, while we are on checklist, the point made was absolutely right. Standardization is required, and that is where we specialize in. While quality is something that we'll have to work on when we comes to audit. So another questions as we go around in the session we'll be asking is whether audit should be risk-based or should it be 100%. So that's again, we will again come back to that. So Mr. Godse, how do you see this audit methodologies evolve to assess the risk associated with emerging fintechs? And how are organizations preparing, or how are your organizations preparing to audit or supervise emerging technologies like AI,
Yeah.
ML, and quantum
Yeah.
recently being talked about?
So I think the competence of the regulatory ecosystem, because uh, as we had been discussing, the conventional way of doing audit probably is not helping us to get assurance about how exactly it's working, right? And as industries are adopting technology, I think they're also becoming better up using regulatory technology to support the audit requirement and optimize the effort goes into regulation or compliances. Basically, the regulators are also now trying to adopt. That's why we say supervisory technology, right? Because there's this blind time that you talk about between one audit to other audit. Things may be happening something and the regulator may not be aware about it. So how do you not leave scope for that blind time? Because control decays, right? Whatever control effectiveness that you check, it decays basically, right? In the course of time, basically, right? And then you have only once in a quarter, once in a 6 months, basically. And this blind time is becoming very important area for deliberation. And that's why we talk about continuous audit as a way. And is there a way for that? And the supervisory technology is evolving to finding a way. So one is, that's why a lot of now discussions, especially I see from the aggregate level institutions like a regulator or anybody which is working with so many different organizations, the ecosystem security is now becoming very important part. And which are those instruments which are available for you to look at the security of the ecosystem? For example, there are thousands of organizations are connecting to you, or a regulator has to watch hundreds and thousands of the organization. So there are some tools and technology which are evolving to help understand today all of these companies where they stand, at least based on the publicly available kind of assets they have and where the security stands for that, basically. That's one thing. Second part is there are a lot of assessments happening. And there are some technology tool provider which provides you day-to-day visibility about the current today's standing of a particular organization. There is a very interesting tools available in this market, basically. SBOM definitely is very important, which is now technology is helping you prove that. There's also a very interesting thing which we have been doing is very, though, so one of the important part is asset prediction. If suppose some organizations are working on some particular transaction, basically, so what could be likely asset that they would have, basically, right? And can you predict that asset? And based on that, can you understand the current day security? Because then you know for this asset, this could happen, basically, because across globe we have threat intelligence for that. And one more important thing which we are now seeing is ecosystem level threat hunting. So most of the hunting is doing it for internal organization, but now people have started doing threat hunting for ecosystem. So there's a significant effort that you can put together an ecosystem and thousands of organizations, you can think about them and do threat hunting for that, and a lot of technology evaluations are coming, basically. And the telemetry is available, and you make use of those telemetry, make use of those technologies, basically, and supervisors can really augment itself to really make sure that this blind time I talked about is taken care of and assurance is actually continuous in nature, basically. And there are ways to achieve this particular part. One of the important part here is control decaying is now becoming important. In fact, there is too much focus on control, not on a underlying capability. For example, we talk about password. So password 8 or 12 characters is a control, but password management system, it is better. It will not allow you to configure password which is a weak in nature, basically, right? So the underlying capability has to be focused as well, because that's how you will be able to take care of the volume and velocity and complexity that you will see in a security domain, basically.
Thank you so much, Godse Saab. So while you have made it seem so easy to provide this kind of ecosystem for doing audit, so for a practitioner, how can auditors assess and manage risk associated with these outsourced services and partners? And what kind of challenges as practitioners you would face in ensuring that your cloud-based systems are compliant with regulatory frameworks.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask this?
Mr. Shastri.
Yes. That's where I used to say as analogy many times, 1990s, you take, for example, a bank. A bank is like a flat in an apartment. You have only one door entry, right? If the builder has not given a very good door, we used to keep iron grill in front of that. In 2000, bank is like an independent house where there is a possibility thief can come from front or a back or left or right. Today, if you look at a bank or organization, it's a Mysore palace.
Yes.
We have no idea how many entry points and how many exit points are available. They have multiple digital banking channels are available, for example. You have APIs, you have clouds, you have vendors. It means organizations' exposure has increased to a great extent. That's very, very clear. That's where I used to say, because of the vendors and APIs and clouds, the attack surface of the organization has increased to a great extent. So there is a bigger risk that is coming out. And in the last 5 to 6 months, various investigations we carried out, 95% of the cases, the breach has happened from the vendor side. That's where vendor risk management is very, very important and very crucial. The second, in the name of digitization, organizations are going for certain new things called low code, no code, bringing some applications, building and throwing out. They have no visibility that application has brought from which source, from which country it got originated. What is the DLL file, what is the library file, what it is doing, because for me the application is only a black box. Recently we did a survey, remember, from some of the Fintech companies. 60% of the Fintech code is freely available in the GitHub. Such a code you are downloading and you are building a product, and means you are trying to build a product on which we have no visibility. So at the back end, is there any rootkit? Is there any backdoor? Is there any trapdoor? We have no idea. That's the biggest problem I'm going to see is the supply chain risk. So especially in the vendor risk management, remember, you have to be very clear about the source from where you got the software. That's where CERT-In has come out with a very beautiful document, something called Software Bill of Materials. Organizations need to go for Software Bill of Materials to understand it. So vendor risk management, third-party products you are using it, you should have a complete visibility of what is the product and what it is going to perform it. But currently, our audits are not really focused on this type of things. We require to have a complete automation of the tools to understand what are my assets in the organization, the source from where that assets have originated, how many, remember, inside various type of programs are available, from which country we got it. Unless we got a complete visibility of the organization assets, it is very, very difficult to control it. Second is, we are finding it another way of risk also. The last 4 or 5 months, most of the cases, hackers are exploiting the vulnerabilities not in your product, not the other parties, but the most common, remember, products they are using in day to day. For example, I'm using my organizations, there is something called WinZip. I will never do VAPT on WinZip, hope you will agree. But look at Google and type the word WinZip vulnerabilities. Notepad plus the vulnerabilities that are coming. So third-party applications are doing it. And worst part, what we are observing is, last year, 60% of the vulnerabilities hacker exploited to penetrate the network is cybersecurity products vulnerabilities. It means time has come for us to do VAPT on the cybersecurity product you are using in your organization. That's where hackers' mindset is getting completely. So that's where the new type of risk is coming. Cloud-wise, as auditors, we have no visibility. Whatever cloud vendor submits, we are supposed to do it. And where is that data is getting stored, sovereignties, we know that these are all issues are really coming out. Cloud is always a big problem, to be frank. Even though vendor says it is getting stored, we have no visibility at the back end what is available. And shared responsibility is a word, theoretically we will use it, but practically when we do the auditing, shared responsibility is a very difficult to identify it. And as an, remember, organization who went for a cloud, I also have no idea about what is a shared responsibility, because several times attack happens, we ask the victim, I want to have these logs because their cloud environment got compromised. They are going to ask the cloud service provider. They said it is part of our not agreement.
Not available.
That's where a due diligence is very, very important, remember. That is going to be in the form of a service level agreement. And please include in our service level agreements with the vendor something called right to audit. Right to audit, unless you will not keep it, remember, these third-party applications, products, etc. are going to create a big problem, especially vendor. That's where we should appreciate the Reserve Bank of India Master Directions 2021 they have given. Every third-party products banks are using, they should get a certificate from the third party, does not have a backdoors or a trapdoors or rootkits or known vulnerabilities.
Right.
Second, every third-party products organizations are using it. They should get a source code from the third party. If they are reluctant to give it, they should have proper escrow management, remember. Unless you will not keep these clauses as a part of that, it's very difficult to control the vendor risk management.
Thank you so much, Shastri sir. Sarma sir, coming to you, given that he has mentioned so many cautions for what institutions should do for taking care of audit and other concerns that are coming out of that. How is it feasible to implement systems in fintech ecosystems where you are seeing the large number of financial transactions happening on real time? Whether there is a need to move towards, like I had mentioned earlier, about continuous audit or, having, since audit is only on sampling, if we should go, or process sampling. So whether we should go for 100% audit or this. So your ideas on that?
So I have to answer the question real time. I see the clock ticking actually. We have only less than a minute. So anyway.
We'll take liberties.
No. So anyway, regarding the continuous audit, actually see, audit as earlier mentioned, according to standard, according to process, if you said, it's a continuous some engagement. It's a contract between an auditor and the auditee. And it takes a financial burden also. In such scenario, how do you conduct the continuous audit? If you engage an auditor, daily you do the audit vulnerability assessment for me, it would be a financial burden for the regulated entity or auditee organization and for the auditor also. One kind of thing what people are adopting nowadays is like as Shastriji mentioned, the attack surface management. So if you are an organization, you have certain boundaries, presume that certain boundaries are there. Today boundaries are not there actually. So one thing is knowing your assets and continuous scanning and continuous vulnerability assessment at least on a weekly basis. That is one process. Who will do is the second part. Second process people are doing is breach and attack simulations. Like we know certain threat actors are there, like in the fintech sector or in a particular sector like health sector or any sector for that matter. You can understand the TTPs, tactic, techniques and procedures of the attackers. According to those TTPs, whether you are ready to counter those TTPs. This is the breach attack simulation techniques, you can adapt those kind of things. Another kind of thing is, most important thing is what people are nowadays trying to do is the attack surface management. Because you don't know your surface. Because your problem is that you have certain house and colony built in and doors are there, you have windows, but certain ladders are built into other kinds of colonies, etc. through APIs. So you have to conduct audit for the mobile interfaces, APIs, etc. And as Sir has mentioned, the cloud implementation also. So today, suppose if you see any typical data leak incident when you counter, you see the data is leaked. But it is very, very difficult to find out what is the source of this data leak. You see the bank account number and customer name, say that bank's data is leaked. Bank CISO is in panic. They call us, it is not from our systems. Every entity denies it is not from our system. From where this has come? This comes because another kind of bomb I think we have to create is not the software bill of material is one part, we have created a document, AI bomb also we are coming up. We should have some kind of complete supply chain business bomb. I'm not talking about the supply chain of the software actually, the components what we are using, that is one part, that is very, very risky, important part. Also, the complete transaction flow. Where from a bank account is there and a banking transaction is there, what are the entities involved in the entire transaction flow? That's why specifically the fintech companies come into picture. Various fintech companies are acting as aggregators of the data, processing the data, sensitive data, but how much they are secure is a question mark. Their security is also very, very important. Otherwise, between a banking customer and a banker, there are various fintech ecosystem is built up. And where from this data is flowing? A complete transaction supply chain flow, that chart has to be created for each and every kind of financial transaction. There we can find out like NPC is there, UPI system, entire UPI system, what is the transaction flow that is happening, who are the entities involved, where from the data is hosted. it's not only processor, data processor and those kind of things, where from, in which cloud entity this data is stored, for how much time, whether encryption is there or not. These kind of things are required. So this is continuous kind of assessment has to be done. This can be done by the regulated entity themselves, if they are capable of having the technical or financial capability, or they have to engage auditors. But there is a question mark in this, whether continuous audit, if it is to be done, it is to be done by the third party auditor, or you have to engage separate auditor for this kind of continuous auditor. There may be a conflict of interest in that particular.
Most important is
that
financial
factor
burden.
we have to see.
And most important, financial
And
burden.
also, if you do this continuous vulnerability assessment audit, who will test the effectiveness of such process? That is to be done by third party audit.
Yeah.
So what we are giving to currently in the latest policy guidelines is, as an auditor, when you go to a particular entity, see the security process, what process they are using to be abreast with the latest technologies and risks that are coming out, latest attacks that are coming out, and be risk aware and model your security according to the threat actor modus operandi and the techniques, rather than going by certain security controls as static controls.
Right.
That's right.
Thank you so much. And I know the time is up, and given that we have the rapt attention of some of the audience, I'll just go to two more sessions with Mr. Godse. The trust and transparency are key for fintech growth. So how can audits contribute to building consumer trust, especially when it comes to data privacy and financial security?
Yeah, so I think the DPDP application certainly will bring it. And until now, there's always a plane of discussion which is security, safety, and crime. But now privacy is bringing trust angle to it. And one of the important things that we talk about trust is the volume and velocity is increasing, and so is the number of players coming in transaction processing is increasing basically. Can you think about the idea which reduces the blast radius of a data that get shared and processed basically, right? So can you think about, again, the technology will play a very important role. If you secure data at an origin level, through tokenization, through anonymization, or so many different technology which is coming in now, right? So where you reduce the blast radius, even if there is a breach happen, there's no data loss basically, right? So this is a way to ensure the trust can be assured. Ethics is a very interesting discussion. AI brings the ethics as a discussion basically. And I think there are various different discussions happening right now. HIB also put up a paper for that basically. And this is different thinking altogether. It's not security privacy thinking. How you become more ethical, more diverse, more fair, not to cause a kind of public order issue. So many different areas comes there, and there are ways and findings which are coming. Some frameworks probably could also evolve some of the audit guidelines out of it as well.
Right. Thank you. Sastry Saab, you already talked about cloud infrastructure and vulnerabilities that are there. So how can auditors assess the effectiveness of fraud prevention measures given all these vulnerabilities that you are having? And how can auditors and regulators stay ahead of emergent risk and ensure that it's a safer marketplace for all?
Can you repeat? Somehow I could not because...
So we all know that there's a potential for fraud and financial crime.
Okay.
So how can auditors assess the effectiveness of fraud prevention measures?
Yes.
As auditors, you would be in that particular practice. And how can auditors and regulators stay ahead of this curve?
Right. If you look at is, as per the regulatory requirement, I've seen almost every organization has implemented something called FRM solutions, right? Fraud risk management solution. But unfortunate thing is most of the rules they have written is a static rules. They are not dynamic in nature. And regulator clearly says, especially for a fintech industry, the RBI clearly mentioned, at least you do a real-time, remember, threat detection and modifying the rules from time to time based on the analytics performed. So in a single word, what you are supposed to do is a rule-based review need to be changed into adapt to rule-based rules. It means look at everyday attacks, what is happening, or the frauds are happening, understand the patterns and go on changing the rules. A slight example I will tell you, for example, almost many people in the FRM solutions, they have written certain rules. What is the rule is something called geofencing. Many of you are aware about it. For example, I'm having an account in a bank in X. Since I'm based out of India, the IP address should fall only from India. If the IP is falling somewhere from Russia, they will block it. But the recent attacks, all we have seen it, Russian hackers are compromising the Indian servers through which they are making the transaction.
Yes.
So hacker is in Russia, the IP address is falling. So that is not at all going to work at all. Similarly, we have written a rule where if the amount is crossing more than 10,000 rupees or something, an alert should get generated, right?
They flag.
But we have seen it recently, almost all the frauds that were happening it. Attacker before he is going to, it means a fraudster, you call it as, going to make a big transfer, first he is going to transfer 5 rupees or 10 rupees.
Yes.
So we never kept the rule, remember, for a smaller amounts. So any small volume transaction happened followed by bigger than it should be. So that's where we require to have a dynamic pattern of the rules should be changed, but it should not be once in something as quarter. So currently what organizations are doing is in the FRM solutions is they are doing for once in 5 months or once in 6 months rules, but we want, they have to do analytics on the existing, remember, transactions happening it is, based on that they should do it. Second is, in every bank, why we are unable to make a lot of transactions fraudulent is, transaction monitoring team is different and application team is different. Hackers exploit the application vulnerability and do the transaction. I never seen anywhere application logs are really synced with the transaction logs so that we can see a pattern of that one. That's where organizations need to have a complete data lake of various logs. Remember, login to transaction logs, to application logs, to web logs and all that. Then you start looking at, then you can able to identify any fraud are happening it is. Unless we will not create such a data lake, it is not possible to see. Because different teams are doing a different activities is the one. And one live case also will tell you how the mindset is should. Almost you have seen lot of frauds, they started Friday afternoon and Monday afternoon they will end up. I think many of are aware about this point.
WhatsApp scams are
Yes,
good enough.
the reason why is, even the regulator says you should have a real time or a near real time, remember, reconciliation. Many organizations are doing something called T+1 transaction. So hackers are always looking Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 continuous holidays comes. Then immediately remember,
Yes.
Monday will come to know 100 crores have lost, 50 crores have lost, etc. And but what we observed, I will tell you very simple cases. So every organization is keeping some 10 or 20 people, skeleton people on remember on holidays, and 100 people they are keeping in a normal day. So normal day, 100 transaction team, Saturday, Sunday, it's only 20. We are asking them to go for reverse. Keep more number of people on Saturday, Sunday, and keep less number of people on a normal day. That too, we advise a lot of banks, keep them less number of people on Tuesday.
Oh,
So a lot of people have asked, Sastry, why Tuesday you are telling less number of people? 98% of the people who do the fraud in Jamtara and other places, they're all devotees of Lord Hanuman. They never do the fraud on Tuesday. If you want, you can go and verify from I4C or somewhere.
you are revealing your secrets here, sir. Good that we are not.
That's where I said you have to perform analytics.
Yes.
You do a very good analytics, you will understand exactly when they do the fraud, etc. That is very, very important. So I want adaptive based dynamic fraud rules. Then only my FRM solutions are going to work, not the static rules.
Right. Sir. So you'd be happy to know since you mentioned about transaction analysis and how human behavior is. So SEBI also in its surveillance cell has some kind of software that looks into how transactions happen, what is the behavior of people around the people who are actually doing the transaction. So that analysis is already available. On the bank side, we had an occasion to visit the RBI Innovation Hub in Bangalore, where they are actually going into the transactions and seeing what is the KYC, what is a good KYC, what could be a troubling KYC going forward. So this is something that probably I think we are working on, and given that you are given hints on which days to work on, I think that is also a hint to our team members to be more vigilant on Saturday, Sunday rather than enjoy their weekends. Sir, before we close this session, and since we already run out of time, I think we are not at liberty to take questions, but just small, quick suggestions if I could ask you, each one of you, recommendations to improve the quality of audit. So though we had bunch of them, and I tried to take some furtive notes when you said this, that would shape the culture of compliance more as substance rather than compliance as cost and compliance only in form. So starting with Sarma sir.
So, finally, most important thing is, this is evolving field. There is no static framework will work. what is more important is a continuous feedback loop is required. That's why in the recent guidelines, what we have given is give us feedback on these policy guidelines itself. One thing is a continuous feedback between the regulated and auditee organization on the audit and from the auditors, what they found, and the regulators. If a continuous feedback loop is created and these experiences are shared as case studies, as Shastri sir mentioned, certain particular things, are similarly coupled with the incidents and coupled with the transaction flow that is happening, what I am saying, there's the blindness about the transactions and the guidelines of the bill of materials, not only evolving the guidelines, but also implementation of those guidelines, how effectively, and particularly the compliance or the effectiveness of the sectoral regulations that are there, SEBI frameworks or RBI frameworks, how far they are being implemented by the regulated entities. This particular feedback loop is required. That is one important thing, and a common reporting framework for this. We cannot say common baseline will work for all kind of sectors and the auditors and scenarios, but still a common reporting framework and feedback is important.
Thank you, sir. Sir, on to Godse.
Yeah, very briefly, one is the detective and investigative requirement that you embed when you're designing the solution so that it itself will serve the audit and compliance requirement. That's one important part. And second important thing is demonstrability is very important. If you design your technology and process in such a way that demonstrate it better, then you will better in terms of complying with the regulations coming in basically.
Shastri sir.
I would like to add only 4 points, just to summarize, to be frank. The first is, I prefer to look at the products which are compliance by design. So every digital product we are rolling out, we should have a compliance embedded into that, like security by design, we should have something called compliance by design. Second, auditing should change from tick-based to tech-based.
Yes,
that is 100%. Third, audit mindset should change from compliance to risk-based approach. Next most important is, too much regulation is going to backfire, point number 1. And no regulation also going to bring a systematic risk. Can we think of something called self-regulation, like what RBI has mentioned about can we think of something called SRO, self-regulatory organization rules, etc., that is going to help? Last but not the least, can we set up a separate entity, because to reduce the gap between compliance and innovation, right? Where we require to have a unit or entity under SEBI, etc., that's where some other organizations in the world has implemented, who can speed up the things that is going to help us to a great extent.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you to the esteemed panel members for giving us a part of your experience, your expertise on various topics. I'm sure the audience here has enjoyed listening to them and enlightened with some of the fruits of wisdom that they have shared with us. Thank you so much. Thank you. We run out of time, but still, I think we still have an audience left with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a nice warm round of applause. I request you gentlemen to kindly step forward. Let's have a group photograph as we thank Mr. Krishna Sastry Pendyala, Mr. S.S. Sarma, Mr. Vinayak Godse, and Mr. Jeevan Sonparote, our moderator for this session. Thank you for that compelling round of discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure for those of you who have any Q&A, our esteemed panelists will be very happy to